things were happening to me to punish me, and that I was a victim of my own circumstances, that I was attracting these toxic relationships from romance to friendships. And then I reached this moment of realization that the only toxic relationship I have is with myself.
Okay, guys,
Okay.
this is a big one. We have Katrina Razon in the house today, here on Love at First Science. Katrina, you do so many things. It always blows my mind because you're a DJ, you're a yoga teacher, you're an investor, you're someone who's now gone on a wild spiritual path, and you've actually discovered that you've got these insane abilities, which I'm dying to ask you more about. I hope you're comfortable talking about it on Love at First Science. But let's first of all start with you introducing yourself and just telling us a bit about your story.
Thank you for having me on your podcast, Celeste. You are the embodiment of a living prayer. You always embody your truth and share that truth with the world through love and joy. And I admire you so, so deeply. And for your listeners, my name is Katrina, and I am many, many things, but most importantly, I am a teacher of yoga and any gift that allows me to connect with everyone around me who crosses my path.
And tell us a little bit about, I mean, your story starts quite young when you actually started becoming a DJ. So let's go back to those days, because I think that's such an important part of the story, because it's going to lead us to Wonderfruit Festival. And then it's going to lead us to what happened at the last Wonderfruit Festival. And that's going to take us on a wild path, this chat. So let's all the way go back. You're this young, pretty unbelievable character. I mean, how did you start DJing as a teenager?
Well, I was always interested in performance, whether that was in theater, whether that was in singing. And when I was 16 years old, I experienced my first show with DJs in Vancouver, of all places, in which I experienced the energy of the audience with the music being played by this act called the Bloody Beetroot. So they were this electro act, and I was just blown away by everything that was going on in this room, just the energy exchange of everything that was taking place. And from that point on, I started digging for music, and I had this hunger to share this music with my communities. And I started DJing at 16 in Manila, in the Philippines. And it's been a wild journey since.
How did you even make that happen for yourself? I mean, that is a huge thing to do for a young person, let alone a woman at that time. Most of the DJs around us were men.
Yeah. And at that time, when I first started out, people were still calling me a female DJ. And things have changed for the better now. Now that we're ubiquitous and non-binary, people are also ubiquitous in the scene. And it's just growing and growing into this rich diversity just across the world. And I really was so determined to share the music that I would dig through with the great sense of confidence in myself, and focusing on myself having the best time, because I was not allowing my happiness to be determined by what others would think of me, as long as I played music that truly resonated with my heart, with my soul, and that I actually genuinely liked. Because I've been in those scenarios where I play based on what other people's preferences are. And the thing about unconscious people pleasing is that when you try to manipulate other people's opinions about you, it ends up backfiring, and you end up not having a good time. You come out of that gig unsatisfied or upset and quite self-critical on yourself. So as I was continuing this journey and realizing that, hang on, the key here is, as long as I'm having a good time, then everyone else is going to have a good time.
That's so beautiful, because I feel like this is where the conversation is going to go, because that was one of the things that happened at Wonderfruit, is you went back to that teenage mentality of, you know what, I have to love myself and be truly confident in myself. Again, guys, I'm digressing because we are going to get to this. But before we do, I really wanted to ask you about how your story then kind of rippled through, and then Wonderfruit was born, because this is where so much transformation for people, and even you, the creator, has taken place.
Wonderfruit is it's a manifestation of love and celebration of culture, mind, and nature. And originally, when we started out, ideating around Wonderfruit, we had a huge sustainability focus ethos. But as we shifted, as we evolved throughout the years, we realized that we had a special event around us, and that which it's the event in which people attend and shift immediately after and marks their journey into self-discovery. And with that in mind, it completely reflected off of us as the organizers, as the producers, and as we shifted, the festival shifted. And last year I had experienced the lowest moment of my life. And in that low moment was when I realized that something needed to change. And I was going at 200 miles per hour, hit a wall, and everyone has their own journeys. But what's amazing is that sometimes it takes hitting rock bottom in order to create that change for yourself, because no one is going to change your experience of life for you other than yourself. And last Wonderfruit, that was when I realized that I need to start building this newfound relationship with myself, because all this slime that I have on me, all this insecurity, all this self-doubt, all this self-criticism, this isn't mine. Where did this come from? And it often comes from our beliefs, our belief systems, the programming that we experience throughout these years, from the media, from social media, from the news, from all of these external forms of information. And I realized how that was keeping my vibration so low. And initially, I was in this paradigm of victimhood. And in this paradigm of victimhood, I always imagined things were happening to me to punish me, and that I was a victim of my own circumstances, that I was attracting these toxic relationships from romance to friendships. And then I reached this moment of realization that the only toxic relationship I have is with myself. So I must start this journey. I must start this journey into the path of loving myself, because we're here to learn how to love. And if we don't love ourselves, we can't love other people around us.
Absolutely. So I mean, you hear this a lot. Very wise people have said you must love yourself. And the big question that I think is kind of hovering in the back of many people's minds is, how do you do that? Because it's not a flick of a switch, and it's not just like a I like myself, I like myself, I like myself mantra that you do enough times that it changes that wiring. So where did it start for you? Like, what was the catalyst?
Well, my rewirement occurred when I started paying attention, taking the form of a witness. And in yoga, we always take that seat of the witness as the observer, without any judgment on the thoughts that arise and without any need to respond to those thoughts. But then I did an exercise as a part of my rewirement, where every day I would take note of how I would parent myself, that inner parent in my mind, because the brain is an amazing, amazing organ, as you know. And what's amazing about the brain is that our perceptions are either going to make our body work for us or against us. And as creators of our own reality, of our own experience, when we realize that we are the creators of our own experience, and that the obstacles that we face are the only ones that we believe in, then we can go deep into our beings and understand this thought was never mine, this belief was never mine, and you could clear yourself. And it really is important to look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, like, how am I speaking to myself today? Because as you know, as teachers and as guides and facilitators, there's a common imposter syndrome that runs through across the board. And that comes from the conditioning, it comes from the programming, it comes from being overwhelmed with information on social media. And it's a big problem in the yoga community, in any kind of public facing job or occupation, is that this debilitating imposter syndrome and this debilitating insecurity. And that really comes from our harsh judgments on ourselves and being highly, highly, highly critical of ourselves and doubting our natural gifts, doubting our natural abilities. When in actuality, we are all born with these natural gifts. They just become dormant when we don't train them, when we don't believe in ourselves. In fact, there was a really interesting study in which these researchers would ask children from ages 5 to 10 if they are artists. The children up to age 5 always said, yes, I am an artist. Then they reached the age of 7 when half of that base, of that study group would say, no, I'm not an artist. I'm not an artist. And that is where that programming and that is where that conditioning begins at such a young age. And we're exposed to it from when we are teenagers up into adulthood. And it really is our responsibility to put our foot down and say, no, this is not me. I am an artist. We are all creators. We are all artists. And creativity is our birthright. It's our birthright to want to create and share and camaraderie and teach the practice with those who cross our paths. And it's one of my goals is to help people understand that they are the people that they have been waiting for.
That's so beautiful, Kath. And you spoke about vibration, and I wanted to say thank you to you, because years and years and years ago, I read this book called Power versus Force, and it had such a big impact on me in my life. And guys, we're going to get into this in a little bit, because I think Katrina's going to have some really cool insights for us. But you were posting about it on your stories recently, and I was like, yes, I read that book years ago, and it was so amazing. And since you posted about that, for the last 3 weeks, in all of the classes that I've taught, I have shared the map of consciousness as a theme.
Oh, that's amazing.
And what I've been doing for myself off the back of that is asking myself, where am I right now on this map? And how can I get to peace? And I would ask myself things like, how would peace breathe? Or what would the facial expression of peace be? Or how would peace feel in this moment? I'm actually welling up as I'm saying this to you because it's so powerful. Anyway, can I run through the map with everybody really quick? Okay, guys, it starts with the lowest vibration, which is shame. So think about that. If you feel shameful of your body, it's the lowest vibration. We then go up to guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, and pride. And then there's a huge shift that goes up into courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance, and reason. And then there's another huge shift that happens into the spiritual paradigm of love, joy, peace, and then finally enlightenment. And what I love about this is it's so logical. You can see how the one does precede the other and how the vibration does elevate the more you travel up that little list. And so I've obviously shared how I kind of helped myself go a little higher on the ladder, but I was so curious to ask you the question, like, what do you do? Like, do you sometimes still feel like, oh my goodness, I'm down here in anger? Like, what's that all about? Do you still get that? Because I know you've had this huge transformation. And then if you do, like, how would you elevate, or how would you encourage those around you to elevate?
Well, Nikola Tesla once said that if you wish to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency. Everything has a vibration. This microphone has a vibration. This crystal has a vibration. Our thoughts have a vibration. Negative thoughts have a vibration. So do positive thoughts. And there are a lot of clinical studies that focus on these vibrations. And there's a famous study by a Japanese researcher who studied the reaction of water particles to written affirmations. And some of the affirmations were negative, some of the affirmations were positive. In the water bottles, which contain the negative affirmations, like I hate you, the water was deformed and almost polluted like. Whereas the water bottles that were labeled with the positive affirmations or words such as joy, love, I love you, these statements, they all crystallize and form these beautiful geometric hexagonal shapes. And because thoughts have vibrations, that also include the thoughts you have about yourself. And as you were saying, and the way that you explain David Hawkins' map of consciousness is so eloquent. And the way that you're sharing that with your students and your practice is so inspiring to me. And when we look at shame as the lowest emotion in that scale, 0 is death. When you look at animals in the wild, and even when you look at your dogs or your cats, try to think of a moment where you've noticed shame in any of those animals. Because the difference between shame and guilt is shame says, I am bad. Guilt says, I did something bad.
That's huge.
It's huge. And shame is the vibration that is keeping the world vibrating low.
Yeah.
It's the one emotion that is completely human made, and it is absolutely unproductive in our beings. And the way that we transcend out of that paradigm, out of shame, is to begin to practice treating ourselves like we are our own best friends, treating ourselves the way that we deserve to be treated, because the only person who is going to give you the love that you deserve is yourself. And the first thing to do is to release all of that shame, to experience the traumas of our past, feel them in our body, allow them to be felt in the body, because what forms trauma is not necessarily the event at which that occurred. What forms trauma is the resistance to the emotions around that event. And to be able to release these stories, these patterns that no longer serve us, in order to forgive others, because when we forgive others, we forgive the grudges that we hold on to ourselves. And forgiveness is one of the most amazing healers there are out there, because we realize that when we hold grudges against others, it's our vibration that goes down. It's our vibration that goes down. And we cannot show up and love one another if we are still in shame. And what's so exciting about where the world is going towards, and as we see people shift and doing more of the inner work, we're now seeing that people are leaving this paradigm of shame and arriving into this paradigm of unconditional love. And an exercise that I love to do every day, because one thing about the inner work is it's not going to be easy, but with less and less tension, and with less and less traction, and with less and less trauma, it arrives with ease. It arrives with complete ease. And one question I love to ask myself whenever I'm faced with a decision, or whenever I'm experiencing my days and in my pauses of my days, is I ask the question, what would love do? And when I ask that question, the magic unfolds.
That is so beautiful. And it's just, yeah, it's about changing your physiology, right? And, you know, while you were speaking, I was like, yeah, like there is this vibration, and there's this mental dialogue that goes alongside it. And one of the things that I've been struggling with, and maybe you'll have some kind of tool that I can cling on to in those moments, is because life has been so busy. And I don't know if any of you guys listening at home can relate to this. The mental dialogue that, you know, in yoga, we talk about the chitta vritta, the like mental chatter is so intense. And it's so uncontrollable. It's like just like nonstop words flowing through my brain. And so I'll find myself just going, just cling on to sound, or just cling on to the sound of your breath, or the feeling of your body on the bed, or wherever I am. But it's so funny how, like, again, quickly you're going back into that busy state of mind where you're resting, but you're kind of not resting. Your brain is still so busy. And I know for a fact that because so much of these thoughts are kind of deeply unconscious, that there are these little thoughts sneaking into the messy noise, you know, of not being worthy enough or not being good enough. And then the shame and the guilt, all of those things kind of intertwine. You posted on your stories recently that meditation should be done slightly differently to help us really elevate. Is that one of the tools that you would share, or is there anything else to help get out of this kind of mental chattering?
And reconnecting to this idea of observing animals in nature. And I spent a lot of time in Botswana, in the bush, in the wild. And I observed these animals, and a herd of elephants are together, but one elephant doesn't look at the other elephant and think, I'm not good enough. I'm not like that elephant. And this is it's part of the human experience. But to remove that power outside of ourselves, outside of our side of the road, into external things, that is when we can begin to question this and begin to regain that power, to call that power back in, to call that energy back in to ourselves. Because a lot of people struggle with this idea of the lack of control, or the lack of approval, or the lack of safety, for instance. And that's why you see people who come to a class and their bodies are completely in this contrite shape, that they're just constantly startled because their nervous system isn't calm, their nervous system isn't peaceful. And when we begin to identify the root emotions behind these thoughts, because events are neutral in circumstance, they're completely neutral. What we can't change is our perspective on it. And by realizing that we are the only people who can give ourselves the approval, the control, the safety. And when we begin to verbalize that mentally, whether that is in meditation or on the fly during our days and evenings, interacting with the world, interacting with our work, when we begin to create more pauses in our days, because it's in those pauses where transformation happens. Transformation can't take place when the mind is being really busy with a lot of judgment on yourself. It can't take place that way. Where it does take place are in the pauses. It's in meditation. It's in your yoga practice, when you reconnect with this idea that you are the source of your commitment to joy, and you are the source of all that is. And to feel the emotions, because it's a complete misunderstanding in the wellness industrial complex, especially in the West, that you should only be feeling positive emotions, don't feel the negative emotions, or you're only respected if you present yourself in this way and accepted in this community in this way. Because we have to experience the negative emotions, because if we continuously resist, then it will add up. It will show up in the body. It'll show up in the shoulders. It'll show up in the hips. And what we can do is through emotional release. And I really love the work of the Sedona method for emotional releases, and the work of Byron Katie, who is a blessing to humanity, is that through that work, we realize that we are not our thoughts and we are not our emotions. And the more we realize that, the more we can reconnect to source, because we all come from the same source. We're all one and the same. And to believe that we are separate is a program and a belief from a society that is aiming to keep your vibration low. When all of us struggle in these mental gymnastics about how am I going to be good enough? How am I going to create this legacy out there? And this whole concept of a legacy is completely from the ego paradigm. It's at the lowest. It's at the lowest of the scale of consciousness, according to David Hawkins. The truth is, and the truth is a very simple truth, because the ego loves complexity. The ego loves the drama. The ego loves the stories. But the truth is normally down to 3 simple words. Whereas the ego, the complexity is a dissertation. And when we come to that truth is very, 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 very simple. Is that we are not separate. We are all the same, and we are from the same source.
Yeah, it is simple. And it's also it's also a big paradigm shift for a lot of people because we've been kind of indoctrinated into our separateness for so long. Another
Hmm.
book that you recently shared, which I also read a long time ago, and I was so happy when you shared it again, was same author, Letting Go.
Hmm.
And I mean, a lot of what you're talking about is really letting go the idea that you are not whole and perfect, letting go of that lie. But sometimes we hold on to things, and you mentioned like, you know, drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. That
Hmm.
holding on to anger and resentment towards others, there is that action to let go. But what do you feel like when you look around you at all of the people that you interact with or the people that you're seeing out in the media? What is it that people need to truly let go of to then take our whole human planet, the consciousness vibration to a higher level?
Wow, that is an amazing thought experiment. And I think that the most productive way into shifting people out of this victimhood ego paradigm into the paradigm of unconditional love is to stop judgment, is to create the cessation of all judgment, because we are all mirror and reflection of each other. And when you ask people, what is your favorite trait in human beings? Their answer is going to reflect what they love about themselves the most. And likewise, when you ask them, what don't you like about humans? That answer is going to reflect their shadow, what they haven't accepted in their being. And the whole part of the inner work is not to want to fight the shadow, because it's almost as if you're shouting for peace. It just never works. It takes two people to fight, and you're never going to find any kind of peace when you're going into the defense and when you're judging other people, because all judgment is rooted in self-judgment. And once we realize that what we see in people are the traits within ourselves, then we start to judge less and we become kinder to ourselves. And that vibrates out into our being, and holding space in just that vibration changes the world around you. And the greatest contribution that any of us could ever make on humanity is our vibration, it's our frequency.
That's so cool. So you've given us a few tools in terms of how to elevate our vibration, but you speak about meditation, and the way that we're doing meditation maybe isn't as effective as it could be. Could you expand
Mm.
on that?
Yes, absolutely. When we sit in meditation, it's important to begin at the peak state from our previous meditative state. And you could do that by visualizing your fascia holding that peak state. And when you come back to your meditation space and your sacred practice space, you can engage the fascia just by visualizing it and enter your meditation from that peak state. And the results of that are compounding beyond anything. You start to begin to observe your thoughts from a more neutral stance and understand what the emotions behind these thoughts that are arising. Because generally, everyone who sits into meditation think, oh, we have to just quiet that inner voice. We have to fight that inner voice. But again, fighting anything is like shouting for peace. Don't fight, allow what arises. Allow the thoughts to arise without judging yourself for these thoughts, for these observations and emotions. Because in order to integrate ourselves whole, we have to integrate the shadows. We have to. It's a part of our being. And to accept our whole selves as whole, that includes the shadow. And in our greatest difficulties are the greatest gifts. Because once you begin to understand through meditation that you are the creator of your own world, of your own reality, of your thoughts, you come into this moment of ownership and full responsibility of your life, because only you can control those things. No one else is going to figure that out or solve that for you. And what's amazing about transcending through the scale of consciousness is that as you transcend, the higher will always force out the lower. So when you have someone who is vibrating so high and they enter a space where it's the energy is quite negative, that person just being there shifts everyone else. And that, to David Hawkins, is true power, is to not being able to say a single word, just holding space. And that's what one can do in meditation. You can always raise your vibration. You can always raise it as long as you're staying true to yourself, as long as you are doing the inner work every day. And of course, it's going to be a difficult process, but the beauty that is going to flow through you is going to be unimaginable.
I feel like I'm having a very deep experience talking to you, Kat, as I do looking at all of your stories on Instagram. I'm always so happy when I see you pop up.
Oh, it's likewise.
Honestly, you bring me so much joy in my life, and you've made me a better person. I hope you know that. Just like your presence in my life, you've helped me be a better person. So I'm so grateful for you.
You've helped me become a better person, a better friend, a better teacher. I mean, all of the wisdom that's so embedded in your being and what you transmit to others, because you yourself, Celeste, are a living transmission. And it is a joy to witness you.
I feel the same about you, man. Honestly, it's just like, it's so incredible that our paths have crossed. I'm like, honestly, just so grateful absolutely every single day that I found you, because that you found me.
Yes.
And then I found you.
Yes.
And, anyway,
yes.
we digress. You spoke about how you enter into a room and then you can pull the energy of people up. Two things popped into my mind. One,
yes,
I've been in that situation where I felt my energy being pulled down by the others. And there's a deeper layer to this. We have a universal consciousness on this planet, and really we can help to elevate the consciousness of everyone around us simply by being our highest self, by climbing that ladder that I read to you guys at the beginning of the chat. But how do we not allow the negative room that we're in, or the negative situations that are on the planet, to pull our vibration down? Because I am someone who is a positive person. I always look for the silver lining. But in all honesty, when I look at the way things are going in terms of the environment and decisions that politicians are making coming into our next future, when I look at the corruption, and it's one of the reasons I sometimes think it's not a good idea to have children, because what is going to happen? How are they going to get rid of all the plastic, for example, is one tiny example. And then I spoke to someone else whose interview I'm very excited to share, who was speaking about how this is like a really low vibration that I'm putting out, and I need to, watch out, because that is how you change the world, by elevating your vibration. But then I was thinking to myself, but isn't that apathy in some way? Am I not feeding into this like, oh, everything's going to be okay? And then actually that's part of the problem that the humanity is facing, is that they think it's going to be okay, but we're not taking enough action to really create change. Yeah, it's a big question, my love, but I'm so eager to hear what you have to say about this.
As my work as an environmentalist for many, many years, I used to blame the big oil companies. I used to blame the politicians. I used to blame so many people in the extraction. What I realized in this moment of great remembrance that I've experienced through plant medicine is that the emotion that we see in the world is the emotion that we have accumulated the most in our soul. And as I sat down with that, and as I began this excavation process and of this refinement process, when I stopped blaming, it brought about this new world of people who are working towards positive impact on the planet simply because they transform themselves. And you can't inspire a person to act for the earth through these images of shame, of shaming others. That's why the cancel culture movement is receiving such a backfire, because it's a movement based on judgment. It's based on blame. And when we inspire people through love for nature, as opposed to the devastation, then other people connect to that message, because the universal vibration is love. Love is not a feeling. Love is a vibration. And when you can continuously connect to that, connect to the bigger picture, because negative things are going to happen all the time to us. But as I said earlier, we could change our perspective on that. And when we feel as if we're experiencing a so-called setback on our path, there really no such thing as setbacks, because everything is happening to you for a reason. And as long as you could hone into this idea and this vibration that the universe is always going to work in your favor, it will always work in your favor, and everything is going to happen with more ease, the more that you send out these positive vibrations. And whenever we experience something, let's say negative, or things that could be quite unsettling for us, we have to stay within the light. We have to stay within the light and ground ourselves and take a mental note and say, nope, this is not part of my realm. I do not consent to this belief. And gently say it to yourself, because you are going to experience people trying to impose their beliefs on you, people trying to impose judgments on you. And it's empowering when you allow people to have their judgments on you and allow people to be wrong about you. Because if we keep on focusing on what's wrong, then we lose out on the magic of the solutions and what could be the better tomorrow. And I choose every day to focus on creating the new as opposed to destroying the old. Because in order to create the new, you just have to create the new.
Yeah, and that actually will automatically shift things into a better way. That's a really, really amazing way that you look at it. And it is so deep because it actually runs true from the micro to the macro, you know, from the, like individual moments, individual interactions with people that are seemingly small. I mean, we've all had that thing where we think someone has thought bad things about us. And let's be honest, we have no clue what's going through someone's mind. It's all made up in our heads. And then there's the elevated into our communities, you know, looking at what's happening around us in the smaller phase of maybe the borough that you're living in or the neighborhood, all the way through to the cities and then the countries and then the world. And yeah, there is a lot of good happening. And it's so important to shift our focus to that, because that can then be the better tomorrow. So thank you so much for sharing that. Since you've gone through this massive shift, I mean, last Wanderlust, you went, Wanderlust, where did that come from? Wonderfruit, you went to Wonderfruit, your amazing festival that you run in Thailand, right?
Yes, it's held annually in Pattaya.
Honestly, it is a dream of mine to go ever since you shared it. I couldn't go last year and I'm unable to go this year, but I am definitely going to be there next year. It's more, there's music, there's art, there's yoga, there's so many incredible things that happen there. Did I skip anything? What else takes place at the festival, Kat?
There's architecture, there's food, there's traditional music, there's cultural exchanges happening throughout the grounds in the 5-day event. And it is just a energetic exchange in the best way possible, in a sense that people are dropping the mask that they wear outside in the world and reconnecting to who they truly are, which is a fun, playful, open, infinite soul. And what our goals with Wonderfruit this year, as we continuously shift, is to bring people into awareness of their mind, how we are connected to nature and not separate, how we are all connected as one versus separate from the whole. And it's this great remembrance that each and every single one of us will experience in a lifetime. And sometimes that happens through deep introspective work. Sometimes it happens for people in meditation. Sometimes it happens with individuals who work with plant medicine, is this moment of great remembrance, of remembering who we are before all of this gunk that isn't even ours to begin with.
I mean, that's very special because you actually have created a festival where people can transform. And the reason I actually know that this does work is because I've seen it happen with you. I know that you are living a really high vibration life. And then I saw you go into Wonderfruit and you came out. I couldn't believe the shift that you'd gone through. It was so powerful. And then since, it's only been 6 months, but it feels like it's been 6 years watching you. Honestly, it like, do you, I don't know if you agree, but do you see that as well? It's so fast, the way you've been spiraling up. And it's just really inspiring. That's why I was like, what am I doing not getting cats on the old poddy? gotta get reach out.
I know. Yes, my transformation has been major in a way that I don't even recognize who I was even 3 months ago. And that was because it was a lot of deep work with understanding all of my traumas that weren't even inherited from this lifetime, but from previous lifetimes. And to again reach this low moment in my life where I had to make the change for myself, because I realized that the change is only going to happen if I change myself. I'm going to change my relationships if I change myself. I'm going to change everything around me. I'm going to attract higher vibrations only if I change myself. And when I arrived at this moment of remembrance, of deep connection to source, it was when I felt as if I arrived into this true innocence, because we're all innocent. We are all innocent. And arriving in that innocence, I felt that I had experienced an ego death. And for some people, that might sound terrifying. And it is terrifying initially, because an old version of you is dying. And like a snake shedding its old skin, you continue forward. You continue forward on who the person you are going to be, without having to criticize or judge yourself in the past, but arriving in this moment of self-forgiveness, of who you were in these moments, and forgiveness that extends to others. And as I was doing the inner work, I started to declutter everything from people, places, and things that no longer resonate with my vibration. And as you continue to shift, and as you continue to transcend through that scale of consciousness, the people, places, and things that no longer align begin to slip away. And one of the most profound practices that I did in order to shift in that major way was to create this negativity reversal, in which I stopped complaining. And it was a deep exercise in which initially it was very, very hard, because there would be people that I would complain about the weather to the traffic to. I would complain to so many different people. And when I stopped complaining, I haven't heard from those people since, because I realized that through my complaining, I was also giving into this feedback loop. And creating that it's so profound. And another practice that I do every single night for my nervous system and for my brain is to tell myself that I'm going to have the best night's sleep. And when you tell yourself that and you believe in it, you will never wake up depleted from energy. You will always wake up with so much energy, because you have so much love in your heart to start the day in the sunlight, because we are light beings and we need the sun in order to thrive.
Yeah, that's why we worship the sun, I suppose, through ancient cultures. And that's why all of the old architecture that litters the world, where people didn't even have any contact, they all have that summer solstice reverence in terms of the way that things were positioned, according to how the sun tracks. I know that you have studied neuromechanics with Z Health, and you've learned so much about the brain through that system. And I'm curious to hear how that, like all the transformation that you went through, like when you were going through it, did you sometimes think, oh my gosh, this is like this and this that I learned about in my neuro studies? Like, was there any parallels that kind of blew your mind through your spiritual transformation?
Absolutely. As I was transforming and as I was shifting, I started to realize, and prior to all of the inner work, prior to understanding all of the shame that I was carrying in my being and releasing that shame, I would do the air hunger drill on a daily basis, because that air hunger drill really, really helped me in terms of my handstands, in terms of my overall practice in general. And now I try to do the air hunger drill, and it no longer creates that same effect with me, because in that transformation, I have managed to rewire my brain circuitry to create this feeling of safety within my nervous system, and that if as long as I'm feeling that safety within myself, then my body is going to reflect that, because the body is going to be the direct mirror of what's going on internally in the mind. And sometimes there's a huge beauty in not trying to over rationalize and try to think rationally about the beauties of the mind. It's the greatest mystery of eons across cultures from around the world. But even if these cultures had no contact with each other, the message is still the same, is that there is a universal oneness, and that which is conceptless, and to always connect with that which is conceptless, and that in which you're worth it.
And it's actually so true, because you use the air hunger drill, and guys who are listening and you're like, what's air hunger drill? It's just when you hold your breath while you do some movement. And obviously you can imagine after a few minutes or even just a few seconds of doing that, you can imagine your heart starts to pump really fast and your breathing muscles contract really intensely. And I'm just thinking of the parallel to chronic pain people, because my patients, who are dealing with severe chronic pain, their threat levels are so high that pain is the only output their brain chooses, because it's so afraid. It must be really amazing applying some of the spiritual transformation to people. I mean, I would love to actually start to apply more with people in chronic pain and to see how that actually shifts. Did you have anything like that go on in your body?
Absolutely. And also in things that I notice in people that I teach and share with, when I start to offer prompts about inner work and doing the emotional releases, their bodies are much more open. A lot of people, as you know, come into the practice to strengthen their backs. And a lot of people that we work with experience chronic back pain, which is a lot to deal with an emotional landscape of an individual. And when we begin to look internally, when we look inwards, when we inspire people to look inwards in themselves, then they start to create these micro changes, and the microcosm and macrocosm always reflect one another, like as above, so below. And when you see that their internal world begins to shift, their body begins to open up, their energy levels have increased, and they no longer experience some of that pain, because a lot of the pain and a lot of the sicknesses that are in the world are from our emotions or from our thoughts or from those vibrations. And as long as we keep vibrating towards the higher, then we become resilient. And that's why we practice movement, breath work, meditation, is to become resilient, because things are always going to happen in life. Things will always happen. But what we can't control is how we show up.
Yeah, I'm going to listen to our podcast and our chat on repeat.
Oh, you're
as
so
a gentle
lovely.
reminder every day to be more resilient. And that probably just starts with loving yourself a bit more. You're able to just imagine how, actually, it's such a powerful thing. Imagine if you just love yourself, how many more risks you'll take, because it won't matter. It won't matter if someone looks, if someone goes, oh, they're a bit silly in the way that they just did that. It will be like, but I like myself, so it doesn't matter what you think. Isn't that just like, so the resilience really comes from that self-love.
Absolutely. And also giving yourself and I used to struggle with this for so many years. I was caught up in the capitalistic game, in which one of the classic programmings is you can only measure your self-worth based on your productivity. And so I was always working myself to the late hours, accepting too many things all at once. And I always viewed rest in me as a sign of weakness. And I never gave myself that permission to take a break and rest and pause. And once we realize that we are not measured by our productivity, we're not measured by external things that we have no direct impact on. What we can control is giving ourselves that much needed rest. that giving ourselves the rest that our bodies need, a body rest, rest to read a book on a Saturday when your mind is telling you, get up and work, get up and teach. Surrender into the rest, and surrender as you look at rest as a radical act of self-love. And sometimes it's the hardest thing to do is rest.
It really is. I'm in that category. I grew up with parents who really taught me the value of hard work, but I think that the price that we paid for that great lesson, which I'm very grateful for, is not learning how to fully live. And part of really being alive is taking time to just do nothing.
Absolutely.
And being okay
Absolutely.
with that. And I don't mean
Yeah.
watch TV. I mean really do nothing. Like really just sit under a tree and really observe the beauty of nature for hours. And yeah, that is
Yeah.
definitely something that I've been coming back to more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything else that you wanted to share about that?
Yeah. When I look at those old patterns of mine and understanding where they come from, and understanding that it's something that so many people in the world are struggling with. And in my case, that the busyness and the productivity was actually a coping mechanism for me, because I didn't want to sit down with the emotions that I was experiencing. I was running away from myself, and to that degree. And as a result of running away from myself, or constantly seeking for approval and validation through external sources, through these arbitrary measurements that society keeps pushing on to people. Because ultimately, the moment I cut down on social media use, the moment I stop reading the news, the moment that I stopped comparing myself to other people, that was when the peace process started to begin. Because now when I rest, I know that if I benefit from this rest, everything else around me is going to benefit as well. Because you cannot operate in the world when you are feeling unwell. You just can't. And that unwell version of you has to be let go in order to create space for the new you to show up.
Are you going to ever play music again? Are you going to be DJing?
Yes, yes,
Wow.
yes, yes. I do. I
I love
do.
your music so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you, my love. Yes, I haven't played in a while, simply because I've just been so recommitted into channeling the medicine into my teachings, to channeling it into my manifestations, and opening myself up to expansive invitations. Because I guess the reason why I've taken a pause from DJing was because I kept saying yes to everything and not saying no to things that I know that my energy is not going to benefit from. And I'm going to be playing in festivals around Asia in the fall, and focusing my awareness into Wonderfruit and into the planning phases, which has been so exciting and so fulfilling.
I'm so happy that you're still going to be playing music. I have to tell you, I've
Mhm.
been wanting to learn how to DJ since I was a teenager myself, and life never got me on that path. But I actually have started doing research about a course, and I'm this close to booking into it and making it a reality for me. And I just have this
Mm.
vision of one day being like, show me how to do it, Kat. So show me how to make music like you do.
Oh, you're going to be so amazing. You already have that natural ability to weave songs together. You are going to be so natural at this. So
I cannot wait. And thank you for inspiring me to do it, because I think if I hadn't met you, I wouldn't have then gone, do you know what? I'm going to book into this course, and I've now done the research and I know where I'm going.
yeah.
So thank you for just always shining. I mean, you've done this since you're a teenager. You're so
Yeah.
special. I hope you look back and say thank you to that younger self sometimes, because I mean, knowing how you really broke down barriers at that time, that people were not doing what you did then. I hope you realize how
Mm.
unbelievably special that was, and that you've kept this running through your life till now as an adult, and now you're layering on top of that this deep work. Oh my goodness, it's utter in just it's soul food watching this happen.
And music is a vibration, and your vibration can either go higher or lower based on the music. And there's a fascinating field of study called semantics, which studies the vibration, the vibratory nature of sound waves. And for everyone listening to this right now, you can actually listen to all of this free binaural beats and solfeggio frequencies, these healing frequencies that are available on YouTube for free. And sometimes they're like 10 hours long. And this is what we call brain entrainment. And if you listen to solfeggio frequencies that have their own individual healing intentions, whether that's from detoxing from toxins, from DNA repair, to overall general healing, to realignment, to even cleansing your body from negative energy. When you listen to solfeggio frequencies or binaural beats for 21 days straight, and keep a journal as you listen to these frequencies, because you're going to start to feel a shift occur, and you're going to feel more at peace, and you're going to be able to experience life with more ease. And I love to listen to solfeggio frequencies when I practice yoga, when I meditate. They're a great tool for that brain entrapment to get your brainwave state into that alpha, into the alpha state, into the beta and theta states, which are really profound. So yeah,
You've
it's
inspired me,
amazing.
and I actually feel silly because like I call Dan the most spiritual, non-spiritual person I've ever met, because he's like London, you know, very like work in the city. I like watching boxing on a Saturday night, like you can imagine the type. And you know, for
Lad.
years he's been like, "Sal, I swear by binaural beats, you've got to listen to it," and I'm like, "Yes, yes, dear."
Yeah.
And now you've
Yeah.
said it, and I'm going to go and say sorry to him, babe. I should have listened to you, because I had, for many years, had trouble sleeping. I'm much better now. But he was always like, if you play binaural beat cell, that's going to help you. So I'm going to, because we always joke that when it's your partner telling you to do something, that's the least likely that you're going to actually do it. And obviously, we've both had that joke with each other, because I told him, you got to get into barefoot shoes and you got to wear orange goggles at nighttime. Anyway, so eventually he started doing all my stuff. So now I'm going to go and say sorry that I haven't done the binaural beats, because Kat's told me to do it. Now I'm definitely going to do it.
Oh, it's going to be such a huge game changer for anything that you're feeling, when whether it's you've picked up something like a thought from somewhere in public places, and you want to just get rid of that and cleanse your energy from that. Binaural beats, solfeggio frequencies are going to be the way to get your nervous system in that calm and relaxed, serene state. And
It's going to
it's
help
great
my
to listen
busy
to at night.
brain as well. Yeah, I'm going to do it at night when my brain is racing at a million miles an hour. Thank you so much for everything you've shared. And a question I ask all my guests is, and I know you've already done this multiple times throughout this conversation, but maybe there's repetition, maybe there's not. If you had one message for the world, what would your message be?
That's a great question. My message for the world would be that your greatest contribution to humanity and to this planet is your vibration and your frequency. So keep vibrating higher, because you don't attract what you wish for, you attract at what you're vibing at. So vibe higher.
Let's have a bumper sticker made saying vibe higher.
Yes,
Let's dish it out for free.
Yes. It needs to be an emoji.
It needs to be like embroidered across our clothing and tattooed on our skins, because
Yeah.
it is
Yeah. And
definitely the one.
the simple way to test out this vibration yourself is go to any public place and start smiling at people who are walking around you. And automatically you'll start to make that person or whoever you smile at stays better, just because you sent
Yeah.
that vibration to them. And
Oh, it's
that's
so
power.
nice. It's power, babe. And that's what we want to see. We want to see better things happening around the world. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make that change. And you've given us
Mm-hmm.
so much today. You give me so much. You give the world around you more than you could ever realize. I hope you realize how special you are, how grateful we are that you came onto the show today. And Kat, where can people find out more about you?
First of all, I just have to say your words are so well received, so deeply, Sal. And what puts a huge smile on my face just hearing you share your words is that what you see in me is what you see in yourself. And I hope that you're able to celebrate yourself every single moment of the day for the light that you embody in this world. And I've told you since the very beginning that your vibration is so healing. It's so healing to witness you. It's so healing to witness you shine in every single thing you do.
Thank you, my
And
darling.
oh, please. It's amazing to be in this timeline with you.
Yeah.
It really is an honor.
It's just, I can't even believe how lucky we are that we know each other. It's just incredible.
Yeah, it was meant to be. And
No
that's the thing.
accidents.
There's no such thing as coincidences. No such
Yeah.
thing.
It
Only
was meant to be.
synchronicities. Absolutely. Absolutely. And with that being said, people can either find me on my YouTube channel, Yoga with Katrina Razon, or you can find me on Instagram, which is at Katrina Razon. And I'm wishing all of you so much health and love. And if you are here listening to this, I want to thank you for raising your vibration. And you're here for a reason. And you're here to send your vibration out and share that with your communities. And if you walked away with something that you learned from this conversation, share that with someone, because the more that we share through our vibration, the more we elevate the consciousness of the world. And where the world is going and shifting to is a very, very exciting time for all of humanity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, my darling. You're an angel on this
Thank
planet.
you.
Big
Thank you,
kiss.
Sal. Love you so much.
Love you.